Hi there, Dr. Casper here with a political scientist. A leaked document, a precedent that might change. Roe v. Wade is on the line. Who has the right to life and who has the right to make choices on life, both legal and moral? Today on The Political Scientist, I go farther into this discussion on life and choice. So please join me as we talk about life and choice with The Political Scientist. Hi there, this is Dr. Casper, the political scientist, and I'd like to welcome you. Hi there, this is Dr. Casper, the political scientist. A leaked document, a precedent that might change. A new document has revealed that the Supreme Court might shift or change a precedent that has to do with life and choice. Since the year 1973, January 22nd, the precedent has been that America has a 3-trimester rule. Now, this precedent has not only affected the West, but has affected most of the laws globally. In the first trimester, the woman's interests outweigh all interest in arguing that the life of the child is not viable outside the mother. The second trimester is a gray area, and the state has to prove that it's a case of maternal health in order for them to control abortion. And the third trimester, the child's life is viable outside the mother. Therefore, state interests outweigh any other interest, and therefore abortion can be completely outright banned. Now, this all started in 1970 when a woman going by the name Jane Roe sued Dallas County District Attorney Henry Wade. And so this precedent has held and has continued to be a salient issue in the United States and across the world. Today, on The Political Scientist, I'll look at 3 questions. The first question will be, what's the legal question? Does the law or the Constitution provide the right to abortion? Second, what are the moral preferences when it comes to life and choice? And third, what is the moral question? Who has the moral right when it comes to life and choice? So stick with me today as I cover these 3 questions. The first question is a constitutional question and a constitutional interpretation question. See, conservative judges and liberal judges interpret the Constitution differently. Conservative judges use originalism. In other words, they interpret the Constitution based on how they deem the writers of that part of the Constitution wanted, right? So they'll argue that abortion rights come from the idea of an inferred right to privacy, not a mentioned right. So in 1973, the judges argued, following the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Ninth Amendment, and 14th Amendment, that there was this right to privacy and to abortion. All right. And so when you look at originalism, they'll say, well, we don't think in 1790, when the first 10 amendments were written, that there was any right to, or the founders did not think it so. When you take the 14th Amendment passed in 1868, they would argue that that amendment was created to protect newly freed African Americans in the South when it comes to the Equal Protection Clause of all laws and the Due Process Clause, where no state could infringe on citizens' rights. And therefore, currently we have a 2/3 majority conservative bench, and they will interpret the Constitution using originalism. This is different from liberal judges who will use living constitutionalism. In other words, they try to interpret the Constitution based on the current events or what is going on currently. So that's the legal question. How do you interpret the Constitution? Do you protect inferred rights like privacy, or do you stick to originalism and stick to what those who passed the Constitution chose to mean when they wrote the Constitution? The second question is a social preference question. Here, I like to move outside the bounds of what is partisan discussions and partisan politics to more of an empirical understanding of life cycles. Now, everything has a life cycle. That's the order of nature. Plants have a life cycle. Seed, sapling, young plant to a fully adult plant. Same as insects, from the egg to the from the pupa to the larva to the pupa to the adult, and so the cycle is with all nature. This includes human beings. We start at conception as fertilized eggs, the zygote, the embryo, and we move up the steps to infant, to toddler, to through our juvenile stage to post-pubescent adult. And so we also have a life cycle. So the moral preferential question is, where exactly should a person be given the preferential right to kill or terminate a human life during its life cycle? Here we find two opinions, the left and the right. The left prefers to be given the right to kill or terminate a human's life cycle at the beginning stage. This is from conception, fertilization, all the way to almost the embryo in the first 3 months. Well, the right wants to be given the preference to terminate a human life after post-pubescent adult. Now, the left will call this abortion, the right will call it the death penalty. It's still a question of what's the moral preference of killing a human being during the human being's life cycle. Now, of course, in today's modern world, nobody prefers to kill or terminate a life during the juvenile stage. So it's really a moral question, a first social preferential question. And then we go to my last question, which is the question based on moral correctness. And this is where the debate gets heated. Now, putting aside medical and other emergencies, let me just talk about the moral choice here. Now, here I can use two axioms, or you can use two axioms. One, we can use a scientific Darwinistic atheistic worldview, or we can use scientific creationist Lockean worldview. If we use a Darwinistic worldview, then it's a race for survival, for fittest sexes and races. And so in this sense, the left can say it was for my survival, it is for my race, and therefore I should be given the right to terminate a human life. And on the right, they can say it's for survival, it's for protection, therefore I should be given the right to terminate life at adulthood. Well, that's one area. Now, if we use a Lockean, John Locke's assertion, and John Locke is the one who said God has created man with certain inalienable rights such as life, liberty, and property. And later Jefferson would borrow his ideas in the Declaration of Independence by arguing that man has endowed certain inalienable rights by the Creator, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, the challenge that Locke takes us further into is that Locke says that man is created by God and therefore he serves God's purpose. And in that sense, he argues that God owns life. And therefore, not even the person themselves who has that life owns that life. This is why Locke threw a caveat in even the idea of slavery, in that he argued slavery is a perversion of natural law, because you cannot own another human being's life because you are not God, you did not create that life. And therefore, by having slavery and such, you have definitely violated natural law. Now, this goes further in even the idea of euthanasia or suicide. And so you can see the dilemma. Locke really narrows down the idea of when a person may have the right to terminate life. In fact, I find really one area in which there's really moral justification here, which is imminent danger. In other words, if somebody is trying to actively try to kill you, that you have the right to terminate or kill that person. This we refer to as self-defense, and it is protected in courts of law across the world. And this is also protected during wartime between soldiers, right? However, even in war, there's still a moral question and who can be terminated or killed. This is why many people are mad or angry with Russia bombing hospitals and schools, because there's a clear understanding or moral understanding that civilians should not be killed during a war conflict. And so when we look at the moral question, who has the moral correctness, we can see how that shrinks if we use a creationist Lockean understanding of the issue. Now, one person can say, well, what about tradition, right? The court right now says, well, there's not been a tradition of abortion in the past in American history until 1973, but there's been a history of the death penalty. Well, I would argue there was a history also of slavery. Doesn't mean it is morally correct just because it was legal, right? And you can say, well, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Well, that is Old Testament, not New Covenant. And whoever wants to cast the first stone, please do so, right? So it is an oxymoron in that sense, because the only person really justified to kill a person is a person who's already been killed, if you really go deep into it and look at it that way. And therefore, does the state or the government have the right to kill a person for whatever offense? Well, that is the problem. Until the state can prove that it owns the lives or it owns the citizens, I don't think there's a moral justification. And so if you look at that, that's a major question. So you have to really ask yourself where you stand on this issue. You can use a Darwinistic, theistic, scientific worldview. You can use a creationist, Lockean worldview. Either way, you must start with whatever action you choose to see where the road leads. And so this question will be a major debate as the Supreme Court will hear these arguments out. The legal question, does the Constitution provide the right to terminate a human life during the life cycle? The social preferences of conservatives versus liberals. And finally, the morality of the issue as a whole. So this has been a few moments with Dr. Casper as I've tried to break down what's really going on the question of life and choice, and ask you to choose where you stand. The only thing I will say is, even when the Supreme Court, and if the Supreme Court goes ahead and allows for the total banning of abortion in most states, I would ask that most of those states provide maternal support, prenatal and postnatal support for women. It's definitely clear that the cost of maternal health around the world, especially in the United States, has become extremely expensive. And therefore, as a society, there's an obligation. If you indeed claim to want to protect life, then I would argue provide the support and necessary finance and necessary whatever is needed in the pre and postnatal care. Let's help, let's have empathy in the issue and in the matter. This has been a few minutes with Dr. Casper. Until next time when I cover another interesting, maybe controversial topic, I'll see you and bye-bye. Welcome to actualizedcenter.com. At actualizedcenter.com, you'll find the resources that you do need to actualize in life. We will have seminars for you. These will be online, together with the greatest experts in their various fields, from finance to real estate to personal development and leadership. These are the people who are going to walk with you. And since we have the technologies at the convenience of an online forum, and so you have that. We have the actualized assessments so that you may be able to know your actualized language, your level of leadership, and amongst other things. And so we want to load you up with the necessary resources that you need. We believe in the Ya'al principle, that we are going to give you useful and practical skills to help you be profitable, be a person of good understanding, and be a person who will add value to their lives and to their society. We have all been given God-given talents and skills, and we want you to maximize them. Okay? So this is why you join. This is why you come to Actualized.com. We believe in you. We believe in your passions. We believe in your visions. And so come and join us in this journey as you actualize at ActualizeCenter.com. Hi there, this is Dr. Casper, the political scientist, and I'd like to welcome